Hello and welcome back to my channel. So this week I wanted to talk a little about the process of acting and getting into character, etc. As most of you will know, it is now awards season, well underway. The big one is still yet to come, the Oscars. I'll be doing a little video on that like I did last year. So here's my take on acting and getting into character. So for each character it's very different because it really is dependent on the role that you've got as to how you go about getting into character and learning more about the character. And it's not just learning about your character, you've got to learn about the other characters as well within the film, because your character's interacting with every part. So in the lead up to filming, if I've got a character that needs researching, so say if I had a character that had some kind of illness, or that was doing a particular profession, then I would research into that part for my character. When it comes to the script, I take the script, obviously I do a read through first to see all the different characters, the arc of the story, the arc of the character, but then I like to learn my script flat, completely flat. What do I mean by flat? Well, I mean just quite literally just learning the words, just the words. And especially if there's difficult bits, it's actually one of the teachers that I used to had. She was like, basically you should know a script front to back, back to front. And it's quite good to do, say like different like actions when learning the script. So once you've got it off book, then I don't know, doing it whilst you're washing up, so your concentration is kind of like somewhere else, so it's just the words are just coming out naturally. Like before I put any character into the words, I like the words to just be able to come free flowing. Now again, this is not for everybody. Each actor has their own method of doing things. So there's others who do method acting. Now this can vary there's a variety of methods to do, but with some, say like Daniel Day-Lewis, I think he gets in character for about some characters he's got into character about 6 months before filming, then he stays in character throughout filming. Now personally that's just not for me, that's just my personal preference. I have done a film before where I've had to stay in character the whole time whilst being on set. Which was challenging because that's not generally how I like to act. My preference to acting is that once I get on set, so a lot of the time you have very little rehearsal time, so it's kind of like very impulsive when action goes. Like obviously you know you're blocked as to where you're supposed to stand, and possibly actions that you're taking, but your reactions can quite often be they're very impulsive and within the moment, and that's what I like. I personally like to break when cut is called, so I like to break out of character. My reason for liking to break out of character and just come back and just be me is because then when we go action again, it feels like each time I'm giving something different and something new. And if the other actor's doing the same, then it's great. You get this like, sometimes you get this spark of something different that hadn't happened before. And for me, it feels more natural for me to break in between each take. Also like that with each take, because I'm coming out of character and going back into character, that I can explore the situation, the scene, in a slightly different manner than I had before, because at the end of the day, humans, us in general, we don't do things exactly the same each and every time. It's a natural thing for humans to do something different each time. So for me it kind of makes sense that in between takes I come out of character. When I go back into character, then the character might react slightly differently depending on how my character is reacting to the other character in the scene or characters. One part that I do when I am learning the script, so I don't necessarily add too much character in, like I said, I like to learn it quite flat, but naturally you kind of like learn it with some form of character in there. And what I like to do at the start is, once I've done a brief read of the whole script and how all the characters mesh together, I then like to pick an element of my character that I personally can really associate with, which can be difficult if you have a really dark character. I imagine, say, Anthony Hopkins may have struggled trying to find some form of empathy with Hannibal Lecter. But with human, the way to look at it is we all have shades of light and dark in all of us. We all have a dark side, we all have a light side, and we all have shades and colours in between. And it's trying to pick an element that appeals to you, that you can kind of relate with, even if it is like on the very dark side. And you just pick that, and I kind of like pull that in to the rest of the script when I'm then learning, etc., on quite a flat level, but it still has some element of character there. Once I've flat read the script and I found that element of a character that I can really associate with myself, I can then mould and develop that, but only do it to a certain point, because in film you don't get necessarily so much rehearsal time. You might get to possibly run through the lines very briefly before you shoot a scene, but I like to leave space within what I've built of my character to take into consideration what the other actors are going to bring from their role that will then have an effect on my character. Because at the end of the day, acting in your role, it isn't just about you. The screen time, the stage time is not just about you. There are other roles, characters on stage, on set with you, that all participate into the whole story of the film or the production. And it's always hard once you've done the performance. You know, with film, you can kind of look back through the rushes, and you can alter things like as you go. But that's why I find like the impulsive moments the better moments, because you're not overthinking it. You're really not overthinking it, and that's what I love. So I love the fact that I don't overthink it. Like, the words I know, bang, they flow out easily, but I can shift and change them and shape them according to each scene as we go, and each take as we go, and they might mould and flow in a different way, especially depending on the reaction that I'm getting from the other character. Because I have a huge respect for actors in particular. You know, this does include the rest of the entertainment industry, but particularly for actors, because we're forced to have to be really strong-willed and take on challenges and obstacles on a daily basis, and it is a daily basis. Because even when we're winning and we're getting all these films, we're constantly worried about when the next one's going to be, and are we doing as good as we should do, and all those kind of things. Plus there's 99% rejection, like daily. But then at the same time, when we take on a character, we're forced to be completely and utterly emotionally vulnerable, or else the audience isn't going to believe it. So it's having that where, you know, we've built up all these barriers to be like, stay strong, you know, resilient against the industry, and then like in the next second that's all got to go, and you've got to be this entirely different person, or not technically entirely, can never be an entirely different person, there's always an element of you in the character, but completely vulnerable. And so I think people like forget. I think sometimes people look and they go, oh, that was really, you know, actors, they have it really easy, what, they just walk on set. It's like, no, it's not a case of that. Like, it might seem to you like, oh, they've only spent like 2 weeks filming. Actually, it's all the stuff before, all the stuff afterwards, as well as a huge monumental task in between. All the while going from being like strong to emotionally vulnerable. So yeah, hands down to all actors and everyone that is trying to make a living out of it, everyone who is making a living out of it, everyone who's super successful and all the way to the top. Hats off to everybody. Thanks for watching or coming back. Please like and subscribe to my channel, much appreciated. And I will be back with another video soon. Peace and love. Art is risky. Art is challenging yourself. It forces you to challenge yourself. And the deeper you go, the bigger risks you have to take. And the more challenges and the more obstacles you have to overcome, but then the bigger the reward at the end.